Today we'll be looking at bankruptcy filing trends by chapter in the District of Columbia. To do this, we have about a dozen charts showing bankruptcy activity in the district going back to 1990. All this filing data comes from the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. Now, this first chart shows total filings by year since 1990 in D.C. During that time, there have been about 41,000 cases filed. Looking back to early 1990s, from 90 to 95, filings were in the 1,000 to 1,500 per year. Big jump up in the late 1990s. From say 1997 to 2005, filings were in the 2,500 per year range. Big drop off in 2006, the year after bankruptcy reform. Increases from 2006 to 2010, but even though filings more than doubled during this period, that they were only about one half of where they had been in the years prior to bankruptcy reform. And then has been a big drop off since 2010, where filings now are well below where they were in the early 1990s. About half of that range, and less than 1/3 of the rate in the years prior to bankruptcy reform. This next chart shows state by state, and we will grant D.C. statehood for this presentation, looking at filings relative to population. In this period from 1990 to 2015, D.C. has been about 35% below average, which is 10th lowest among the states. In general, in the Northeast, bankruptcy rates are quite low, very high in the most of the Southeast. So comparing Washington to, say, Tennessee, somebody over this period of time in Washington was less than 1/3 as likely to file as someone in the state of Tennessee. Now, looking at it year by year, you can see that there's in the early 1990s, the filing rate was below average in Washington. It actually was above average in 1998, 1999. And then it's dropped off. But since 2006, the bankruptcy rate in Washington has been about 60% below the national average, and actually is second or third lowest in the country nearly every year. This chart shows Chapter 7 filings by year in the district. Early 1990s, filings were running 500 to 1,000. There's kind of a big jump up, and so from say 97 to 2003, filings were in the 1,500 to 2,000 range. There's a drop off in 2004, which probably would have continued, but then with bankruptcy reform, there was a real spike in filings in October of 2005. Huge drop off in 2006. And for example, with the big surge in filings, on just a single day in October 14th of 2005, there were 217 cases filed in the district, and there were only 297 filed the entire next year. But then since 2006, filings jumped up during the Great Recession, but only got up to about half of where they had been prior to bankruptcy reform, and then have dropped back down now and are about where they were in 1990 and about 1/3 of where they were in the years prior to bankruptcy reform. Now, looking at Chapter 11 filings in the district, big drop off through the 1990s, and this happened nationwide too. Since 2000, filings have run about 30 per year, more during the recession, and most of these were real estate related cases. And it looks like in 2016, the district is on pace for another 25 or 30 cases. Now, Chapter 13 filings have taken an interesting pattern in the district. In the early 1990s, we're running about 450 per year, nearly doubled by 2000, and we're up over 800 for a number of years. Then dropped off quite a bit prior to bankruptcy reform, really. Had 7 straight declines where it fell more than 70%. Went up a little bit during the recession and have fallen way back down. And so filings are down 60% just since 2010, and by more than 80% since the peak. And this is a very unusual pattern. In most states, the Chapter 13 rate filings are now well above where they were in 1990, and in the district they're about 1/3 as high. Now, looking at the percent of cases filed as Chapter 13, the red line is the national average, and it's been kind of hugging 30% for most of the year since 1990. In the district, in the early 1990s, they had an above average rate. There's disruptions due to bankruptcy reform, but then there's just been this huge drop off in recent years, and been under 20% the last 5 years, while the national average has been pushing up towards 40%. So this just kind of shows that for whatever reasons, Chapter 13 really have kind of collapsed in the District of Columbia. This chart shows the unemployment rate by quarter in the district. Is kind of a proxy for how the economy is going. And in the 2006, prior to the recession, it was a little bit higher than average in the district. Then stayed about average 2009, 2010, 11. But then since then, the rate has been 1 or 2% above the national average. So it's really hasn't recovered maybe as much as the national average. So right now, it's about 6% in the district compared to about 5% nationwide. Filings nationwide peaked in September 2010 most recently, and since then they're down 49%. In the district, very comparable, down about 47%. And you can see on this map that states in the southeast have had smaller declines than average, under 40%. Actually, most of these states are under 30%. The biggest declines have been in most of New England and in the Southwest, where, say, California and Nevada are down more than 70% from their peaks in 2010. But D.C. has been right about average during that period of time. Looking at it by quarter, you have kind of a messier pattern, but you can see that in 2011 the declines were much higher, and that was right around the time that Chapter 13's crashed in the district. There's one outlying quarter in 2013, which probably had to do, probably a number of cases were reopened. Generally, when you see an anomaly like that, it's a number of old cases get reopened all at once. And then since then, the national average, the rate of decline has been slowing a little bit. In the district, it's really kind of an unclear pattern. And this happens in states and districts that have fairly small caseloads, that a few cases can mean a big change. A few cases, one way or another, can make a big change in the percentage change over time. Let's see. So far in the first 6 months of the year, filings were down 5.9% nationwide, 5.6% in the district. In the third quarter, it was about a 6% decline nationwide, but DC was actually up a little bit. I think the overall outlook is that there will be about 700 cases filed in the district this year. Probably modest increases in the next coming years, but I don't see any return to the 2,000 to 2,500 cases per year that were filed in the district from, say, 1997 to 2005 without another recession or some sort of bankruptcy reform legislation. Well, that concludes our look at bankruptcies in the District of Columbia. For more statistical information and other information on bankruptcy, be sure to visit the newsroom section of the ABI website at www.abi.org.